Hey everybody, welcome to Dose Town. I'm Fee, and I'm kind of by myself today instead of with the other guys from the podcast, or if you've been watching our recent videos, Brandon, who's been making the history videos. So today I wanted to talk about Black-Yellow Luffy because I was very interested in the recent spoilers you've been keeping up. So just to kind of preface for those of you who maybe haven't been playing competitively this entire time, Black-Yellow Luffy reads, if you put 2 dots on this leader and you're at 0 life, you can discard a card and then get 2 5 costs from your trash and put them into your life face up. The other portion of it reads is that any of your face up life, if they were to hit your hand, they go to the bottom of your deck instead, right? Not very important for what we're going to talk about today, but just to kind of go into and explain for some of you who may not know why Black-Yellow Luffy used to be so strong, I'm just going to go over it a little bit. So, in the starter deck that it came from, you have 3 babies, which is Baby Ace, Baby Sabo, Baby Luffy. All of them read the same thing, if respectively. So, like for Luffy, you would flip the top card of your life face up if it's face down, and if it's a 5 cost or less Luffy, for example, if you're using the Baby Luffy, then you can play it from your life onto the field after you trash the baby, and then your leader gets plus 2,000 power until the end of your opponent's next turn. And it's the same for the Ace and the Sabo, right? So they all do the same thing, just for their respective named characters. On its face value, I think it doesn't seem very impressive. That's kind of just the gimmick of what the starter deck was. To set it up, it kind of takes a lot of cards, it kind of seems a little clunky, but if we dig into what some of the extra cards that we played to support this, you'll kind of understand why Black-Yellow Luffy ended up being so good for back then. So let's just start with looking at your targets, the big brothers, the Big Ace, Big Sabo, Big Luffy. Here on the top left is Punch Luffy. 5 cost, you 6,000 power, and if you activate it, you can trash the top of your life, and the Luffy goes to 8k power until the end of your opponent's next turn, and you draw a card. Right? So this is kind of like part of your aggression, part of what helps you set up getting to 0 life. The Luffy below it, Rocket Luffy is what most people call it. 5 cost 6k. You can trash it. If you have 2 or less life, you kill a 4 cost and draw a card, right? It's part of the removal, makes it easier to go to 0 against some of the decks that may try to aggress against you, gives you extra draw power. And then in some cases, people played the Nightmare Luffy, which was another 5/6, right? When it swings, you can trash a 2k and then you can bottom deck cards to pump him. That part wasn't really super important. The main thing was that it trashed characters instead of KO'd, which was very quirky for some matchups if you decided to run it, like the mirror. This was kind of a late tech. The main thing that people really remember Black-Yellow Luffy for is 5 cost Black Sabo. On play, you draw 2, trash 2, and then all of your characters cannot be KO'd by your opponent's effects, right? Cheating this off of Baby Sabo felt very, very incredible, right? You have an unkillable blocker. At the time, we're playing a very removal-focused meta, right? Raw blue cheese in meta, and not being able to have your blocker KO'd, or we'll get to it in a moment, your Geckomoria KO'd, makes it really, really hard to deal with. He just essentially has an uninteractable board that will progress the game plan, progress the win con, and you can't really do anything about it unless you just have enough blockers to outlast. And that's one of the more impressive parts. And then the 2 on the right, the Yellow Sabo and the Yellow Ace. The Ace is a rusher that some people played just to opt to be more aggressive. It ended up being cut from most lists as we got later into Black-Yellow Luffy's lifetime. But it was always something that was kind of around. Some people really liked having like a 1 of pair just to be able to apply pressure or even have a sneak lethal, just because it was so efficient to cheat the rush Ace out from your life. And then the Sabo was just another way to like remove really annoying, very powerful pieces on board like Kuzan and stuff, other random 5 costs. And we had reduction, like pairing it with Ice Age to like clear somebody's Moria while you're still trying to ramp up, or even draw your own Moria before you go to 0, was super, super powerful. Great tech card. But that kind of gives you a gist of the kind of things we were cheating out of our life, right? And so this is where we put it all together. Let's talk about Geckomoria. Right? Geckomoria was banned. This card was broken. And then especially in Black-Yellow Luffy, it is incredibly broken. right? You pay 8 to play you play a 4 cost or less and a 2 cost or less from your trash. But in Black-Yellow Luffy's case, most of the time you just play 2 babies, right? And it didn't matter that one came standing, one came rested most of the time, because you generally just popped both immediately. So that's the base level of the combo, right? It's a flexible 9k body. You put 2 on your leader, so your leader can use leader effect. You put any 2 5 costs you want in your life. Then you play Moria to play the respective baby pairs that go with it, and then you go to a 9k base with 2 on your leader. You swing for 11k. You develop a 9k, and you develop 2 5 costs that could be any combination of the brothers from before, right? It's incredibly powerful, and that's really only the base level of it. If you were watching at the time, there was a lot of gameplay that, if you watch very, very strong players play the matchup, Black-Yellow Luffy would not be able to get to 0 life comfortably a lot of the time, so players would starve, and you would kind of be stuck at sometimes 3 life, most of the time 2 life. And in those matches that people are taking very slow, you also played cards like 4 cost Kuzan, which let you draw cards, and there's not a lot of good ways to interact with the hand at that point in time, right? And so Black-Yellow Luffy would just keep drawing cards and still play Geckomoria just to put pressure on you if you weren't actually going to force them to go to 0 and let them play their game plan. So there's so much flexibility in Moria, and honestly, there's so much to go into, right? Like, the combos that you put out is like, you can play Kuzan plus a baby if you have a face-up life, or you know what the life is from one of your 2Ks. You can play, if you add zero life, you can go put 2 life there. The top life is Rocket Luffy. Play Shirahoshi blocker, which gives -4 cost on play, and then play Baby Luffy to then pop an 8 cost, and then still be a 7k leader with 1 life, which is still like very, very powerful. There's so many different variations and combinations. It was too flexible, and eventually that's part of the reason why it got banned, right? Rob Lucy also had its own circumstances, which also probably contributed to the ban. I mean, it very much contributed to the ban. But to me, when I think of Geckomoria, like, this combo, like the flexibility Luffy has, is probably, to me, is the reason that it really should have been banned. So now that we know that, let's talk about some of our new options in OP12 before we get into the big new option that we're going to get, right? So in 12, and in the sets from after Geckomoria got banned, we have better, more efficient ways to take our life, because a lot of times we played cards that either set up our life, or just kind of drew us more cards. It wasn't necessarily things that we could use to interact, or like they were not very like non-committal ways to progress your game plan. So let's just start in the middle, actually, with Zeus. Zeus is probably the most obvious 2k or new option that we got. 2 cost 2k, 2k counter, right? You can just add a card from your life, which, okay, that's pretty good on its own. But you can KO a 5, and combined with things like Kuzan and maybe even other reduction like Shirahoshi blocker, you can KO a 9 for 2 and still progress your game plan towards getting to 0 life, right? Very powerful. It's not something that we had before. Before the bans, they were generally just playing their 2Ks just to get to 0 and not really getting a significant amount of benefit. They're really just drawing cards. But now we have a way to progress our game plan, get closer to 0, and remove things on board. It's very powerful. Another interesting option is this new Sabo in 12. If you have 3 or less life cards, he gains blocker and +3 cost. It becomes an 8 cost blocker, and on play, you can add the top card of your life, or add the top card of your life, and then draw 2, trash 1, right? Put any random 5 cost you want in trash, see more cards, get into your options so that way you can progress your game plan. But new option, new blocker, not quite as powerful as Sabo, but in terms of but you get card advantage out of it, and you can play it early, right, and still progress your game plan, and still stay on the defensive. Another blocker that does draw 2, trash 1 on Sanji here on the left. has counter. You can't complain about seeing more cards as Black-Yellow Luffy and putting them in your trash, because honestly, the cards in your trash were, as long as it's the brothers, are almost as good as being in your hand, almost, right? Especially during the time of when we had Moria, but in this case, it doesn't really matter. And then I think one more really interesting tech option that people haven't really talked about is Slam Gibson. Just one of those events that are modular. One cost, you get plus 3,000 power during the battle. Great, can't complain, right? It's a defensive event. But you have a second mode where you can pay 5 more Dawn, and if your leader is Supernova, you can life a 9 cost or lower into your opponent's life. That's essentially life anything at this point right now. There's not very many 10 costs that we play in this 11 and 12 meta. 9 pretty much hits most things. Jack is probably the notable exception to this, where he's 11 cost. But if you have any form of reduction, you can also life Jack. There's plenty of ways this works out well for you. It's something that you can slot in. Of course, these 2 cards on the outside, Sanji and Slam Gibson, probably are the least likely to be played compared to Zeus and Sabo. But now that we have more slots, we can work some more cards. So new options. And then now let's talk about the reason why I really wanted to make this video is a new 5-cost ace. 5-cost yellow ace from PRB2, so this will be releasing in September. Let's just do 5-cost 7k on play. If you have a face-up life, you can play a 2-cost Sabo, Ace, or Luffy. Essentially, if you have a face-up life, you can play a baby from your trash or hand, right? One of the problems that arose when we lost Moria for Black-Yellow Luffy is that you are on such a tight clock that and not having any way to recur the babies was actually incredibly detrimental. Just because even though you see a lot of cards, you need a lot of cards in hand to just do the combo to go to 9k from hand, right? You have to just discard 1 card to get the 2 life in. If you want to go to 9k, you have to play 2 babies from hand, right? That's 3 cards every single turn that you need to maintain 9k, and there's only 4 copies of each baby. And if we just based it on the list pre-Moria ban, you only had generally 4 Luffys, 4 Sabos, right? So you don't really have that much time to work with there. So now the introduction of this ace gives us a lot of new combos, also gives us a lot of resilience, and lets us play a longer game plan than if you try to play Black-Yellow Luffy now, right? And then another thing to note that I think is worth mentioning is that OP13 is 3 brothers themed, right? The original starter deck Black-Yellow Luffy came from was 3 brothers themed. If we continue the same trend and they care about Black-Yellow Luffy, because I don't know, the leader did seem popular, then the OP13 might have more Black-Yellow Luffy support. But to me, I think even without the extra support, having this 5-cost A first, let's talk about what the combo looked like with Geckomoria, right? You would discard a card and put 2 5-costs into your life. For sake of simplicity, let's just say they're 2 5-cost blocker Sabos, right? They're in your life face up. Now, the combo is simple from here. You play Moria, and then you play 2 Sabos, 1 active, 1 rested. You would pop both of these to get to play 2 Sabos from your life, and your leader gets plus 4k base power until your opponent's next turn. It's pretty straightforward how powerful this is, right? You're 0 life, but you have 2 blockers that can't be removed by effects. They can be rested, but it would take a significant amount of Dawn, so there's no easy way to kill Black-Yellow Luffy from here, right? This is probably what people remember the most, is Geckomoria, play 2 blocker Sabos, swing 11, pass, right? It's incredibly powerful, but we don't have it anymore, and there's a bunch of variations of what Moria could do. Just so that way everyone has an understanding and a visual to compare to, let's now look at what you can do with the ace. So now let's talk about the combos that you can do with the new 5-cost ace. So just bear with me, the original 5-cost ace will be my substitute in this board state builder for the new one from PRB. So, very baseline, you can discard a card, put 2 5 costs into your life. In this case, we'll put Sabo, Blocker, and Ace, right? Okay, yeah, 8 Dawn to work with. What can we do? We can play Ace. This Ace will play the Ace out from life, and then we can play any baby. In this case, we would play Baby Sabo, right? This would cost us 2 Dawn, and we would get the 2 5 costs from board, and then our leader would go up to 9k. Very powerful. We have 6 more Dawn to work with. We can do a lot of things. Simplest example here is we can play a 5 cost blocker, right, and end up in a very similar looking board state to our Gecko combo boards, right? We don't have a 9k body, instead we have a 7k body, but in return we do have something that, for all intents and purposes, honestly is actually fairly similarly powerful. Considering the new state of the metagame, right? We have a lot of ways to rest blockers now. We have a lot of ways to rest Dawn now in green. Well, I say a lot, but very common ways. We have Dead Man's Game and Hody. Purple now very commonly plays Usohachi to rest your Sabos and the like, right? These blockers are not bulletproof anymore, but there's a couple of new interesting things with our new options I mentioned to you before. These black blocker Sabos can be the yellow blocker Sabo, and if you remember, the yellow blocker Sabo reads, it gets +3 cost when you're at 3 or less life. It is out of range of Usohachi. But against green, this is not very useful to us, right? Green currently plays Hody, and in the OP12 metagame, we play Dead Man's Game. Rest any 2 characters. There's no cost restriction. So this is where this extra Dawn comes in. It's very powerful, like a useful tool to us here. We can start considering playing defensive events that may be very powerful and useful to us. We can play Rue, one cost, get +3, and restand a 5 cost character, right? If it's a deck that needs a lot of pokes, they can rest our blockers if they want, but if they don't do one big swing, we can restand our blockers, still have a very powerful interaction there. We can also just consider our other useful option, right? If we want to play techie removal as well with our defensive events, we had the Slam Gibson. It's now just we have the option to hold up a 1 cost 3k counter, right? Extend our counter more, make our 9k leader that much more difficult to kill. And this is the very baseline of what we can do, right? We have a lot more options from here. So say we wanted to instead do something very similar. We still have our 2 Dawn here on our leader. Let's say we need to remove a powerful target. Let's say there's what's very powerful, like a 9 cost Zoro, right? We can put the Rocket Luffy into our life, and then in any way, it doesn't really matter how it ends up in our life, and as long as it's face up, and we can either hard play this Ace or play the Ace from life off of the baby just like before, and then cheat out this Luffy, right? Say this costs us 5 Dawn. We have 3 Dawn to work with here for reduction if we need to clear 9 costs. Here's another scenario here. Because we have because it only costs us 2 to get 2 pluses out of our life, right, to go to 9k power. With the rest of our Dawn here, we have 6 Dawn. We can Slam Gibson a 9 cost Zoro, right? If we have enough counter to survive, like say a 15k all in, we can go Ace, Rocket Luffy, play these out of our life, right? And then use our 6 Dawn to Slam Gibson the Zoro. Say the Zoro's protected by the 2 cost blocker, Koshiro or Tashigi. You get to play this Luffy out first, and then still actually pop it using Slam Gibson, or life it using Slam Gibson, right? Because it costs you 6 Dawn. And say we don't have the AC equation, we can still do this combo, but only just be 7k, 1 life, but we've removed their very potent threat that they took 1 entire turn to develop and didn't get any use out of, right? We have very interesting options now in our deck building. We have very powerful options now because we have the flexibility of being able to play a longer game, because this Ace lets us dig these babies out of our trash, get our leader's base up higher, and then just play a long game, right? So yeah, that's some illustration of some of the combos that we had. If you liked this kind of content, please subscribe. We're really trying our best to improve our content and try new things. If you haven't seen any of the content on the channel before, one of the members of the channel, Brandon, he's making very interesting documentary style videos. We're going to try bringing gameplay slowly onto the channel. We're still just working out the quality of it, but you know, if you're looking for high level gameplay from some of us, we'll have that too. And hopefully we'll do more videos like this in the future, just talking about the new reveals and some discussion. Anyway, thank you. Bye.